Okay, so this is a lecture on art of Asia, America, and Africa before, I would say, something like 1600s or something like that, before the New World was discovered, I guess. And but some of those same cultures are still sort of there today. Of course, Asia, America, and Africa have changed a lot due to globalization. So we will leave that part out for a little bit until we talk about contemporary art. Okay, so we're going to start with talking about Asia. Again, I'm going to go through very quickly. Please go back, read everything, try to understand everything a little bit better. Okay? So, art of Asia, we're looking at Japan, China, and India in particular. So, we're not focusing on all of Asia for now. So, we will start with here. There are a lot of different philosophical and religious traditions in Asia, and all of that really affects the artwork and how it looks. So take a little bit, pause the video to read through these. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start with India. Stylistic characteristics of art, very, very detailed. Often there was an emphasis on the human body. A lot of times it was sensual or suggestive of some sort of fertility. Okay? And there are a lot of religions that started developing in India, including Hinduism and Buddhism. And there was a little influence of Islam in the I think, maybe 1100s to about 1800s. Don't quote me on that. If you're interested, please look it up. But there was a little of influence in India because of certain like Mughal emperors taking over different parts. Anyways, this is the Great Stupa. It's a Buddhist piece of architecture. A little bit of Buddha's ashes were spread all throughout India, and these sort of like burial mounds were, created on top of them as sort of like a symbol for this religion. As you can see, the gates are really decorative, and it tells the different lives of Buddha. So in Buddhism, it's not just one life, but there is this idea of reincarnation and different lives sort of like layered on top of each other. Okay? There's a lot of Hinduism in Indian art as well. This is a Hindu temple. As you can see, it sort of looks like a mountain. It's reaching up because just like a lot of religious architecture, it's pointing up to the heavens, to the mystical or God or whatever that you would like to call it. Okay, there are also some horizontal lines here. If you notice, this is so that if you notice, like the inside is quite small. This piece of architecture is meant to be experienced inside and outside. So you would actually walk outside all around and look at the little sculptures and stories that are told. Okay, this is some of the specifics. It looks very sensual and sexual, and a lot of this has to do with showing balance in the universe. Here's a little bit more interesting. Specific, what I was talking about earlier. So there's a little Islam and Indian art. Mughals took over India in the mid 16th century and ruled for a long time. And they also brought in a lot of art. So there are Persian and Indian artists that were working. This is a very famous Taj Mahal from Agra, India. And it's a burial mound. So this is actually like a tomb for a king's wife. Okay, so he built this giant beautiful tomb for her She was his favorite wife, of course. He had, a few other wives as well. And he was supposed to build a black version of this across from it, but that didn't quite work out. So he is also buried in there with her right now. Okay. You can read a little bit about the details. Okay, let's move on to China. There's a lot of respect for heritage, ancestral worship, and generally the style tends to be very uniform, symmetrical, and precise. It's a lot about like discipline. So Chinese scroll painting is very, very important. You can see there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of like hard lines. Very kind of illustrative. Okay. Here's another decorative banner from the tomb of Lady Di. And it's showing a lot about like what they used to believe in 168 BCE. So beliefs also change throughout time, and we can tell that throughout, to see like how this kind of works. So if you see this little angel here, that's Lady Di. Up above is the heavens, and below is, Okay, so read a little bit about this. And then we'll go to Japan. Japan is actually very different from Chinese art. It's kind of opposite of it because instead of being symmetrical and disciplined, Japanese art is very asymmetrical, very organic, and it's all about meditation and nature. This one looks a little bit more straightforward and geometric, but I just wanted to put this here to show that textiles were also very, very important and considered art. Here is a woman carrying on that legacy. It's very important for the Japanese to keep their traditions going on. So the government actually pays artists to just keep practicing some of the ancient techniques. Okay. Very important Japanese tea ceremony. This ritual can take a long time, and it's basically designed so you would stop and just kind of slow down for a while. Okay? It usually happens inside of a tea house. As you can see, it's very, very natural, even though it's kind of modern looking with the straight lines and everything. But if you see the materials and the walls, there's really not a lot of decoration except for this banner, and it looks very natural and comfortable, and it's very small as well. Okay, this is a tea bowl, and during the tea ceremony, you are also expected to slow down and look at the beauty of each and every like mark that goes on this. So it's very, very organic. There's really not a lot of like precise design going on. So you're just supposed to look at the organic, the beautiful ceramic sculpture / tea bowl that's here. Okay. Okay. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about the Americas. We're looking at South America, North America, and Central America. So we don't know much about the Americas, unfortunately, but we can link it back to maybe 15 to 18,000 years ago by looking at oral histories, different books, European accounts, which can often be like huge misunderstandings, of course. But the most important thing that we can really rely on is archaeological finds and DNA testing. And this really helps us date things and then put things together. Okay? Starting with South America, we're going to focus on the Peru region. There's a lot of different civilizations, but we're looking at the Andes Mountains. These are some textiles. Animals were considered very, very important, and you will see that that's a motif that gets carried on throughout the different types of art that we're going to see in this section. This is an ear spool, so it's an earring. This is like some sort of like an important person with two slaves or soldiers or something on the side, and this was actually found in the burial grounds, and there was a person just like this and two people on the side just like that. So I found that really interesting. Okay, this is Machu Picchu. This is quite popular on top of a hill. This was supposed to be sort of like a resort or something like that for the king. Really great location because you can look around to make sure that there's no one going to be harming you when you're on top of a hill like that. Okay, Mesoamerica is also the area of modern day Mexico and Central America. So we're looking at this area. Teotihuacan is located about an hour away from Mexico City. It's a complex that has many, many pyramids and a lot of apartments, but you can only kind of see the bottom parts of the apartments now. Okay, this is kind of what it looks like, and it aligns astronomically with the sun and the moon. Very interesting. This is an aerial shot. So here you can see some of the pyramids. They're really quite scary to climb up and high up there, but very, very interesting and very cool. Read a little bit about this. Interesting part, we see these animal heads again. Okay, we're going to see them all over America from top to bottom. This was actually found by the Aztecs. Let me go here. This complex was created by the Teotihuacan people that sort of disappeared. No one really knows how and where and why, possibly out of disease. And the Aztecs found this and considered it a very important sort of religious place because it just kind of popped out of nowhere. So they used this for a lot of religious ceremonies that also included a lot of sacrifices. Mayans are also found in present day Central America, Mesoamerica. This is a ritual ball game scene where you have this ball and you're supposed to put it through a hoop. So this is actually ancient basketball, if you want to call it, but it was quite different because it was usually played between two different tribes, and the losers were sacrificed. Here is a drawing of some European encounters of the sacrifice sort of going on. Okay, Aztecs. Okay, here are some other drawings of human sacrifice done on European paper. Interesting. So it was probably done by a European artist. Read about it. Okay, going back to North America, there's a lot of different regions of settlement all over the place. Very cold and very hot. This is very interesting. It's a cliff palace in Mesa Verde. It's a apartment complex or living complex built under a cliff because to get like protection from rain and sunlight. And it's actually really interesting because it's built at a certain angle where in the winter time sunlight goes directly into it, and in the summertime there's shade all over the place. So they were very good at studying how light happens and how the sun moves to design something that would keep them very comfortable. Okay, this is an eagle transformation mask, typically, so this is quite recent, late 19th century. This was typically worn by a boy that was reaching manhood. So he would wear, somebody would wear this, and this eagle would kind of collapse and become an eagle, and then you kind of open and close this mask to reveal the person inside. And we can think about, okay, what does an eagle represent? Bravery, strength, things like that. in order to celebrate this becoming of a man. Okay. The last section I want to talk about is Africa and the Pacific Islands. Even though they're quite far away from each other, there are a lot of similarities, so our book has decided to put it all together. Very natural materials. We don't have that many examples, but a lot of things have not changed because artwork is considered very traditional. And if you wanted to be an artist, you were supposed to have this long apprenticeship on an older artist and do everything exactly as they teach you. So there was not a lot of room for change because artists were sort of, they were kind of like the communicators for the community. They were supposed to like carry on the culture. Okay. Very, very diverse continent. Very, very old. Okay. This is a twin figure. Again, it looks quite recent when you look at the time, but things did not change for many, hundreds of thousands of years. So we can look at something and understand some of, religion and things like that. So this is a twin figure. There were a lot of different figures such as this, typically given to a girl as she's growing up to take care of as a, practice baby of some sort. And when she gets married, it becomes a symbol of fertility. This one in particular has sort of a different meaning. This one is a twin doll. This is a mask. It's a funerary mask for the Dogon culture. And the reason why we can sort of tell this is because there is something that is pointing up and there is something pointing down. So it kind of shows like the underworld and the heavens as being something significant for their culture. This is a mosque, and it's made out of natural materials. Very, very interesting, as you can see, if you want to read more about it. Moving on to Art of the Pacific Islands. So this is the area that we're looking at. And tattoo was considered a very, very important part of the Maori culture. So you would actually get a tattoo throughout your life as you go through different things. So for example, if you reach puberty, when you got married, when you had your first child, when you fought in a battle. And so you can tell that the older the person is or the more things that they've done, the more tattoos they have, and it's a sign of social status. Easter Island is very, very interesting. It's famous for these sculptures, the Moai ancestor figures that look out to the sea all around the tiny island. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and we will continue looking at the next things at a later time. Thank you.